Napa know-how.
It takes a lot to get excited about a bag, but most bags can't save you 20% on parts and accessories. That's 20% off brake pads, 20% off oil filters, 20% off virtually anything you can fit inside the 99-cent Napa reusable bag. So tell your buddies there's a bag they just have to check out. Quality parts, helpful people. That's Napa know-how.
Napa know-how.
At participating Napa Auto Parts stores while supplies last. Minimum 3 items. Exclusions apply. Offer ends 10/31/18.
TCL is a proud sponsor of the 1500 ESPN studios. TCL, America's fastest growing TV brand.
This is information not being reported by anyone else. You want the scoop? Here it is with Darren Doogie Wolfson.
As the calendar is flipped to October, no better time than to bring you a fresh episode of the Scoop Podcast. It is episode 176, brought to you by MyBookie. I'll tell you a little bit more about MyBookie, mybookie.com later on. We'll go interview specific to Joe Mauer and his likely retirement coming later this month, and related to the Wild opening their season Thursday night in Denver against the Avalanche. The 2018-2019 season is upon us. We've gotten to know from Blaine High School, from St. Cloud State, Wild forward Matt Hendricks. So we will welcome Matt to the podcast right now. We'll get to some Jimmy Butler talk later in the podcast, although truthfully there is not all that much that is new, but certainly I can pass along what I am hearing later on. Matt, it's always good to catch up. Now that we have flipped the calendar to October, not to suggest that things don't ramp up in September or, heck, even August in terms of getting ready for the season, but does this now take on a different life now that you know that opening night is just days away and we're here in October?
Yeah, it sure does. First of all, Darren, thanks for having me on. It's an exciting time of year right now. You can tell the weather's getting a little cooler out for sure. We were just up at Camp Ripley doing a little team bonding, and we got some snow up there, so that was pretty nice, indicative of the hockey season for sure. So we're looking forward to it, getting kind of sharpening up right now at practice and getting ready to go, and looking forward to that first game on Thursday.
Tell us a little bit more about the team bonding up at Camp Ripley. How beneficial was that?
No, it was great. We wanted to go up there and get to know each other a little bit, kind of get out of the hockey arena and kind of get into an environment where we're not as comfortable for sure. And what better teachers to have than the U.S. Armed Forces helping us out and running us through some drills, running us through some teamwork stuff. We did some rope rappelling and all that good jazz. So it was fun. I got to know my teammates better. I got to understand what they're like away from the rink, what their family life is like at home, all those things that are important coming into the start of a year.
Whose idea was it to get up there?
I expect it was probably the coach Bruce Boudreau and Paul Fenton, our general manager. I'm sure they came up with the idea together.
And everybody was on board instantly? I mean, the locker room instantly said, okay, when do we go?
Yeah, the guys were excited. We got to fly up on some cool Chinook helicopters. That was a pretty neat experience for a lot of guys, especially the guys that hadn't been able to do that before. And what's great about playing here in Minnesota, and the guys in that locker room, they all loved being around the military, getting opportunities to talk to the men and women in the service. So guys are on board and excited for sure.
Was your teamwork, was your leadership skills, were they put to the test up there?
Yeah, they were. What I liked about it is we split up into groups of 4. So you didn't have just one guy kind of running the ship. Everybody within our small group got to, put their input in, and some of the drills we couldn't vocalize, we couldn't talk, so we came up with hand signals and stuff like that, and it was good. It's great to see, the young guys. Like I had Jordan Greenway in my group, so you get the young guys out there and get them comfortable too, because you want them to be able to speak freely in the room, and it was a great opportunity for those young guys to kind of come out of their shell a little bit.
Who else was in your group?
Who was all in my group? It was Greg Paterin and Greeny, myself. Why am I missing? Who am I missing right now? You gotta let me think about it.
Well, you think about it, but on Greenway, I mean, He's what, 21, 22? I mean, what do you have, about 15 years on him or so?
Yeah, give or take.
I mean, I suppose it's not much different than last year in Winnipeg, with some of your young teammates, but does that seem weirder and weirder as your career moves on? You being, the age that you are compared to some of the young guys?
Yeah, it is different for sure, but what I find more amazing every year is how much better prepared these younger guys are. They're in terms of their habits away from the rink, their nutrition, their diet, the way they take care of themselves. It's almost like when they're coming out of junior, coming out of college, they've already been, kind of had a little taste of that pro mentality, the way of, preparing and the way of recovering. And these kids are really smart now, and they have resources at the levels that older guys like I didn't have.
But you must have had something, right? I mean, to play as long as you have played, I mean, deep into your 30s, you did something, right?
Well, no, for sure, but I've learned a lot over my pro career, where I guess what I'm trying to say is, or explain, is that these guys seem to already have a grasp of a lot of the essential stuff coming into their early years of their career.
And their skill sticks out on the ice. I mean, when you're practicing against Greenway and these guys, I mean, it stands out.
Oh, it does, for sure. Their ability to move, how fast they can, how powerful they are, their puck skills. It's pretty unique. It's exciting and a lot of fun for me, for sure.
Who else has impressed you?
Kyle Rao, he went down to Iowa, but he had a great camp as well. I was talking to him the other day, just how he changed. I didn't know who he was in terms of the type of player he was, and he came out and played very physical. That was something that surprised me, and I was obviously happy to see it. A lot of the veteran guys impressed me too. Being around Mikko Koivu every day now at the rink, and his leadership qualities, his work ethic, the way he prepares coming to the rink every day, and you can definitely tell why this team's has had a lot of regular season success, and he's kind of the driving force, the driver behind our team.
On leadership, I mean, you're known for your leadership qualities. How do you balance making sure that you are a leader, but you're also not stepping on Mikko's feet or Zach's feet or any number of other veterans?
Oh, communication is definitely big. We communicate with each other real well so far, and I think having the ability to talk freely in the room, so everyone is on the same page, and I don't think that'll be a problem at all.
Do you have a defined role? Are you fourth line, right wing?
I'm playing fourth line center as of right now, but that could change in an hour or two, and it doesn't necessarily really matter. That's where I'm sitting right now. So,
I mean, is that the beauty of your game, Matt, that you have that position flexibility? You can play center, you can play wing.
Yeah, I think it's helped me for sure over my career, having the flexibility to be moved around in the lineup. Different positions, take faceoffs, kill penalties. All those things have definitely helped me prolong my career as well. Who's
on your line right now? Which is fluid all the time.
Yesterday, we had a day off today, so we weren't on the ice. But yesterday, I had Marcus Foligno on the left wing with Eric Fair on the right wing, and Luke Cunnin was kind of moving in and out of the line, kind of rotating in and out. He's coming back from an injury.
So I mean, especially with Foligno and you, I mean, you guys are going to bring a physical brand of hockey.
Well, and Eric Fair, I know Minnesota fans haven't seen a lot of him, but he's a big boy too.
Oh, okay, so yeah, big time physical then.
Skates well, and when he was a younger guy, when I played with him in Hershey in the minors, and then in Washington, he was more of a looked at as a power forward, skill forward, where he was really going to light the lamp a lot, be on the power play. And as his career has gone on, he's had to find different ways and adapt, to keep his career going as well. So he's really kind of turned up his physical game. He's gotten excellent in the face-off dot as well, and penalty killing. And I look forward to playing with both of those guys. They both skate really well. They're both big bodies. They go hard to the net. They go into the dirty areas. And, I think with our work ethic that we could be a pretty good line.
So bring some offense, too. I mean, no reason to just pigeonhole you guys as just that physical line. I mean, I saw you score a goal in that in that preseason game in Winnipeg. Might have been the first preseason game, or heck,
Yep.
Foligno scored at least one against you guys last year in the playoffs. I mean, there could be an offensive element to your line too.
And we hope so. That they always say, well, fourth lines don't necessarily need to go out and score. They need to create energy and change momentum and all that. And those are things that we're going to be able to do and part of our job. But at the same time, we want to be able to help on the score sheet as well.
Is Bruce Boudreau about the same coach that you played for in Washington?
He really is. He brings that he has that excitement for the game. His passion is still top notch. Very, very passionate player or coach when it comes to every day at the rink, whether we're on the ice or off the ice, in the locker room or in the video room. He's a very passionate coach, and I'm very happy to be playing for him.
I mean, overall, is there general excitement, Matt? I mean, expectations still are relatively high. I mean, not many teams can say they've been to the postseason. What is it now, 6 consecutive years? I mean, we get it.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't been able to take that next step. But just to make the playoffs that many straight years is one heck of an accomplishment. I mean, do you sense in that room that expectations for this year are pretty darn high?
Absolutely. That is quite a feat, 6 years in a row, and especially in the Central Division. It's a tough division and tough conference. And it's just taking that next step now, and that you're kind of raising the bar a little bit and figuring out a way to be that team in the regular season again, and then worry about the playoffs when we get there.
Do you have a sense if this is your last year? I mean, you're on a 1-year deal, or in your mind, are you still playing for a few more years?
Oh, I'm gonna play as long as my body allows me to, as long as I'm having fun, and I still love going to the rink every day.
But it could still be up in the air. So I guess from the standpoint of Thursday in Denver, Saturday here at the X, will you take a moment to kind of soak in, hey, this potentially could be my last opening night, then opening night at home?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really think about that stuff too often, so I'm sure it'll pop in my head once in a while, maybe for a quick moment. But other than that, I try not to worry about or think about that kind of stuff, because I just want to keep my focus on the game.
How has Devin Dubnyk looked?
He's been great. He came into camp ready to go, excited to start the season. So I really I look forward to playing with him as well. He's a funny guy too. He makes me laugh quite a bit, and excited to be on his team. He's a heck of a goaltender.
So everything you've experienced so far, going back the last month plus, I mean, just reaffirm your decision to sign here? Yeah,
it really is. Being able to be home most nights now with my family, my wife and kids, you can't put a price on that. It's incredible. It's been outstanding this fall, coming home, helping with homework, and going to soccer and all that kind of stuff that I love doing. And I know they really enjoy having me at that stuff too. So that's been great. And then we got the new practice rink down in St. Paul now at the Torii Arena, and that has been what a great place for us, for the players of the team. We've got everything we need in there in terms of our training, off-ice training. It's just a great facility. So we really have everything at our fingertips now. It's up to us to put it all together and be ready come game one.
You know what, on that, I mean, Matt, you've been around enough. I mean, as good a practice facility as you've ever had?
Oh, absolutely. It's incredible. It really is. You guys should get a tour of it sometime. I don't know if there's video on it or anything.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, we actually got one a couple weeks ago. I didn't make it, unfortunately, but I saw the video. I mean, it has to be the Taj Mahal of practice facilities.
It's beautiful. It's incredible, and we're very fortunate to have it.
How many friends and family will be in attendance on Saturday?
No, I don't know yet. I haven't got the official count. I try to get all those texts and phone calls sent to my wife's phone.
I mean, I imagine, though, all your friends from Blaine, heck, St. Cloud State, I would think it's a lengthy list of people that want tickets.
Yeah, well, they know not to call me on it, so they know how to find tickets for sure. But yeah, it really has been a good homecoming so far, with all the texts and phone calls that I've got, emails from friends and family just welcome me home, and they're excited that I'm here, and just to kind of have people that are real close to you, to be able to play in front of them every night, whether they're in person or they're watching at home on TV. It's very, very exciting for me, and I'm sure you can hear in my voice. I can't wait to start.
We absolutely can hear that. You will start on Thursday night. Matt, always great to catch up, and best of luck this year, and I'll see you at the rink soon.
Absolutely, Darren, and thanks again for having me.
All right, let's now segue to some Twins talk. One of the Twins' all-time greats. He's now a special assistant for the Twins. He also does a great job on some telecasts. He does some analyst work on the TV side. It is Torii Hunter. Torii, always good to catch up. The main reason I wanted to have you on the podcast was your touching Instagram post about Joe Mauer over the weekend. Why don't you expound on your Instagram post?
Well, I don't know if this is the end of his baseball career, and I don't know if it's the end of the Twins' careers as well. But, just in case it is, I hadn't really talked to him about, if he was going to retire or anything like that. I just want to give a guy his flowers. I've seen him grow as a player, as a person, as a husband, as a father. I've seen him grow in many ways, and Joe has always been so down to earth, man. Someone I really, really love, and we had great conversations all the years. I played with him, and just to see it, possibly come to an end. And you saw the emotions the other night when he was behind the plate catching.
Mm-hmm.
How it all started. When the guy has the tears like that, it's a little bit of tears of joy, and also tears of kind of leaving his career behind. In that moment. So you can kind of see that he's making that decision. He's actually, smothering his heart with all those thoughts of should I retire or should I stay? And so that's something that I had to toggle with, and I got some assistance from my family. So I'm pretty sure Joe is going through a lot right now.
We'll get to your decision and how hard it was in a second, but a little bit more on Joe. I mean, heck, you were in the lineup when he made his Major League debut. I mean, through all the growth that you laid out, did you see, though, early on that he had a chance to be very, very special?
Man, I saw it. He was like 19 years old, and he was at Major League camp, and he didn't get a hit, but he had like a 8-pitch at bat, 9-pitch at bat, just battled at the plate. And I think he hit a ground ball my first time seeing him, but his plate presence was so unbelievable. I was kind of like, wow, who is this guy? At 19, I couldn't imagine, working the count and fouling pitches off and trying to stay alive. Me, I was trying to go deep all 3 pitches and 19 years old, just to see somebody with that kind of patience. And something I saw in Matt Lawton at the time. Matt was one of the guys who was patient at the plate, worked the count. And but you see a 19-year-old kid, Joe Mauer, come up to the plate, and he's waiting for his pitch, and he's fouling off tough pitches just to get his pitch. I mean, that's right there is a star in the making if he stays healthy.
And, I mean, you guys were good those years, too. I mean, you think about he makes his Major League debut in 2004. I mean, you guys were rock solid for a few years there.
Oh, yeah. In 2004, we were pretty good. I mean, I'd say about 2001, we were better, but 2002 we really came into our own. So 2002, 3, and 4, when he came in, we had a legacy already. He jumped right in, fit right in, and he had like 2 or 3 titles before I departed. But this guy is a champion. He's a quiet. I call him the silent assassin because he's so quiet and mild-mannered. But he will destroy you. He will get that big hit. He will battle at the plate. Late in the game, and so I got the utmost respect for Mauer on and off the field, man. The way he carried himself on the field and off the field was it's professional, and he's a hometown guy. He never in the clubhouse have I heard one thing about him being cocky, thinking he's all that. He was so down to earth. He spoke to everybody. You got nothing but praise for him.
You know what? I'll ask you the same question I asked to Jim O'Neill, his high school coach, the other day. Is he an underrated leader? I mean, we don't picture Joe as a leader, but just everything you just said about, nobody ever said a bad word about him. He'd cheer others up. I mean, was he an underrated leader in many ways?
Man, you got different types of leaders, and everybody can't be a leader. Joe led by example. Joe was the type of guy, he came early, did his work, and he went to the cage and hit. He shook hands with everybody. He had a smile on his face, no matter if he was 0 for 40 or 40 for 40. And when you're a kid and you're young, and you look at one of the best players in the clubhouse, and that's the way he carried himself, you kind of look at that and be like, man, this guy's a professional. He had all the tools in the clubhouse to You know, he had like a little sauna he bought just to get in there to loosen his body every day. And people see that. And he kept going in there every day. Then next thing you know, you saw 30 guys in there trying to get in there because Joe was doing it. So he was a leader. He didn't have to say much. He just led by example. You know, professional at bats. And it's like contagious. And when you have Joe Mauer having professional at bats, guess what? It kind of jumps on you because you don't want to have that quick pitch at bat. I mean, everything he did was, you saw him, this guy's, 34, 35 years old, running down the line with full speed all this year until his last at bat. He hit a ground ball. He ran down the line hard as possible. I mean, if you see a guy like that doing it, why am I jogging down the line at 22? Then it's contagious. I have to do what Joe does. And that's Joe as a leader.
On your decision, Torii, to retire and, tying that into Joe, and it's a different animal with Joe. I mean, he just had another concussion in May. So you consider his concussion history. That has to weigh heavily on his mind. But take us through that process, the amount of people you lean on, and how do you know when it's time to walk away?
For me personally, I can't speak for Joe, but I know Joe had a ton of injuries as far as being a catcher. I don't want to say at first base. First base seemed like he was settling in really well. This year he played like he was a Gold Glove first baseman.
Mm-hmm.
So that wasn't a problem. As a catcher early on in those years, it's probably catching up to him, in some ways. It's not 100%, but it probably caught up to him, and he's thinking about those things, and it takes him longer to get loose and stretched out. That's what happened to me. It's kind of like I had to get loose before I needed to get loose. And it was killing me. And but I wasn't hurting. It just took me longer to get loose. I wasn't hurting. My mind, I was driving down the street for about a week, for 7 days straight, and I'm telling my wife, all right, I got to go to work. All right, I never considered baseball as work. I never said that and used that in any way as work. And my wife said it after the 7th day. She's like, you use work every day this week? You never said, I'm going to the stadium, to the field. I said work. And I thought about it, and I was like, you know what? Once the mind goes, then the body will follow. And it was just time for me to go. I kind of leaned on my wife. Always lean on my wife for, am I making the right decision? Is it time? And she said, do you feel like it's time? And I was like, yes. And then I talked to Torii Jr. and Money and Darius. What do you guys think? And first thing Torii said, hey, come to my games. Now you can come watch me play. and so I just kind of made those decisions, and I saw my grandkids, man. You know how blessed you are when you have grandkids.
Mm-hmm.
They say, love you, Papa, I miss you, Papa, So it's all these mixed emotions, all these emotions that's playing a part in your decision, and I'm pretty sure Joe is about to have another baby.
He is, yeah.
He has twin girls, beautiful twin girls.
Mm-hmm.
He loves them dearly. He talks about them every day. That's what you do when you talk about your loved ones. And to hear him talk about his daughters and his wife and his family, that's going to weigh in on him too. And I'm pretty sure he's talking to his wife as we speak and trying to make that final decision, whether he's coming back for 2019 or retiring. So that's what I did. I kind of just weighed in on the people that's very important in my life and plays a part in their life givers in my life, not the death dealers. You don't go to people that bring the noise and bring you bad information. You go to the life givers, and that's my wife and my kids.
Torii, while I have you, I'd be remiss not to pick your brain on just the Twin season as a whole. You were around the guys enough. 78 wins. How do you analyze this year's Twins team?
Man, there's a lot of ups and downs, a lot of transitions and acquisitions, and I think it was a growing process. You had Sano who went all the way to A-ball, just bouncing back from injuries. Byron Buxton, he went to AAA and then get called back up. He just had a lot of different things and a lot of transitions, and I thought Molly played a really good role in kind of, minimizing all the turmoil and the noise. He put those guys out there and put guys in position to succeed, especially you got young guys that got called up from AAA, and they came up and was very exciting. And so I definitely think that this year was kind of like an up and down and a big learning process for not only the Twins, but for the Twins players to, try to evaluate what we can do better, how we can make ourselves better, and come 2019, really go out there and be consistent and play the game the right way.
On Buxton, have you talked to him a bunch since he wasn't called up in September? Have you tried to, talk him off? I don't even know if he's on any sort of ledge, but certainly there was disappointment there in him not coming back up in September. Have you had a few conversations with him?
No, I haven't. Actually, I've reached out and no phone call, but I understand his frustrations. I really do. If he didn't have frustrations, then I think something's wrong with him.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, you got to have a passion for the game, and you were playing well down there. You don't get called up. You should be pretty upset about that, and he got a right to be. Nobody can say, oh, he shouldn't be upset. He shouldn't do this. He shouldn't do that. Think about it. If something doesn't happen your way, the way you feel like you're deserving of it, you might not act out that way, but you're going to act out in any situation and anything in your life. But I'm pretty sure he's, evaluating some of the decisions of leaving the season, evaluate that and say, all right, maybe it wasn't the best decision. But he has a right to act out, but not in that way. And I definitely think he's going to make the adjustment. Byron Buxton is a great young man and a good young man. He just, just left the season. You don't ever want to leave the season and leave your teammates when there's games left, no matter where you are.
Torii, it's our first time catching up since you had that cool experience in the summer managing in the U.S. World Prospects game. All I'm seeing right now is, hey, the Angels need a manager, right? A team right in your backyard. The Rangers need a manager. What about you throwing your hat in the ring for some of these managerial gigs?
Man, that's a hot tamale. Right there.
Is that something, though? I mean, just in the general sense? I mean, maybe it's not now. Maybe it's 3-4 years from now. But is managing full-time something that interests you?
Very much. Very much. My wife is the one that's saying, you know what, I watched you during the All-Star game, and you have had so much fun, the way you interact with the players, and you had so much joy in it that she's like, you know what, I want you to be happy and do what you want to do. And so if you ever wanted to go back to baseball, I'm giving you that shot. She's like, I'm giving you the shot. And she would support it. And so as long as my wife supports it at this moment or this time in my life, that's all that matters to me, because one reason I left the game is to get closer to her, to get closer to my family, and try to make up some lost time, which you can't make up, but you try to. And when I've been having a blast the last 3 years with my family, and I don't want to leave too early to go back into baseball. When I was married to baseball, and my wife was my mistress.
And then I remember, I mean, heck, it was at your farewell news conference, right? You talked about spending some time on a nude beach with your wife, right?
Yeah, we've done that. It might have been in our backyard. We laid out nude.
Torii, I love it. Let's catch up again in the near future. Let's not make sure that it's another 4 or 5 months or anything like that.
All right, let's definitely keep in touch, man. Love the way you do things. I
surely have some Twins notes, which we'll get to after a conversation I play back that I had on Monday with Jim O'Neill, the former baseball coach at Cretin-Derham Hall. He knows Joe Mauer incredibly well. In fact, he spent some time with Joe early last week. He was also at Sunday's season finale. But let me tell you about MyBookie, mybookie.com. You play, you win. Remember, who you're betting on is just as important as who you are betting with. That's why I always tell people to use MyBookie, mybookie.com. They've been good to me, so trust me, I wouldn't be telling you about them if I didn't have full trust in them. I would only recommend a service that's been good to me, I promise you. And that's why I'm urging you to make your way to MyBookie. You win, they pay. They have in-game live betting, over-unders on fantasy points scored, and the most rewarding player perks in the business. And how about this offer? If you're willing to deposit after 6 p.m. Central, they'll give you an additional $25 free play on deposits over $100. How about this, too? If you use the promo code SCOOP, join now. You go to MyBookie, mybookie.com. MyBookie will match you deposit dollar for dollar. That's MyBookie today. It's MyBookie, mybookie.com. We thank MyBookie for helping keep the Scoop podcast going. You play, you win, you get paid. MyBookie. All right, here's my conversation with former Cretin-Derham Hall baseball coach. He coached Joe Mauer in high school. He remains incredibly close to Joe to this day. It is Jim O'Neill. Jim, you were there. I mean, could Sunday have gone any better?
No, I don't think so. I think everybody came there with, open eyes and, not really knowing what was going to happen. And, it started with the girls coming on the field early, which was just, touching and very emotional. I think the entire day played out that way. And you got towards the end of the game, and each at bat was going to be, his last per se. And it was so sweet to see him hit that double. It was just, textbook Joe Mauer, and sliding into second base. And then when he came out with the catcher's gear, I think everybody lost it there. We certainly didn't expect that. And, it was very fitting. And you could just see the respect amongst the players on both sides, the umpires, and then the fans' adoration. But, the players really struck me as being a big part of this, and wanted to show Joe how much they respect him. And it was, as Molly said, it was a beautiful day.
I mean, it hit Joe pretty good, too. I mean, Joe, we don't at least see the emotional side of Joe, but certainly it got to him.
Yes, it did. Yeah, Joe's pretty stoic, and that's what you always say about him. He's always the same, but there was something different there yesterday. You could see it in him. You could feel it. I think mutually from the fans too. He knows how much the fans have meant to him over the years, and I think all of us in the upper Midwest, not just from little St. Paul here, but Joe's part of all of us. And it was a great chance for us to show him how much we appreciate all the joys he's given us throughout the years.
A little bit on the individual moments. Let's start with pregame when his girls ran out. I mean, I think all of us parents, that hit all of us. I mean, how has fatherhood changed, Joe?
Well, it's hard to say he's changed anywhere, but I think that's one area. He's always still has the same close group of friends from high school here. His family's very close, extended family, but now having his own, you can see that the girls mean the world to him, and his wife Maddie, and they're expecting another one, and I'm sure that all this plays into his forthcoming decision.
And the double. I mean, you're right. I mean, that was vintage Joe. I've always thought he was an underrated base runner. So for him to hustle, get into second, I mean, he either had to walk there or do what he did probably, right, for his last at bat.
Yeah, it's kind of reminded me of Molly diving into third base for his triple for his 3,000th hit. But no, I had great shot of him behind the plate there, and working the count. It was full count, 2 strikes, and then he squared it up, hit it between them, and just Joe's good enough base runner. He just barely makes it all the time, and that's a true sign of a good base runner.
And then, the capper was the catching gear and getting out there just one final pitch.
Yeah, I think that was personally Joe's moment. I don't think any of us expected that. And, he loved catching. He came here as a catcher, said, I want to be a catcher. As a youth, he played all over the place. But when he came here, he said, I want to be a catcher. And, I think his greatest years in the major leagues were as a catcher. And, and that's kind of been his the Achilles too with the injuries has been from catching, but he showed his love of the game and the catching, and I was blown away when I saw it. I was not expecting that, and to get the one pitch from Belial, I think summed it up for him.
And then on the injuries, and specifically another concussion earlier in the season. Do you have a sense if he doesn't suffer this latest concussion that he'd like to come back?
Yeah, unfortunately, this was a reminder, that it doesn't take a whole lot. He went for a pop-up and had a little bit of a whiplash there, and he missed a month of time there, and there's just not a lot known about the head, and It's definitely playing into his decision. It's got to be a hard decision because he still can play. He's a baseball player, and that's who you are, And I think people, he's retiring, but I think ultimately when Joe has to say that he's done, that's going to be the hardest moment of all. And I don't think it's something he wanted to rush into. He's a calculated guy, and he thinks everything out pretty well. And it's going to be tough for those words to come out.
I mean, it's a collection of people too he'll lean on. I mean, he's going to lean on people like you.
Yeah, you stopped by here last Monday, as a matter of fact. He was going to pick up the girls, and I was out mowing the lawn, and that's Joe being Joe. Just stops and says hi, and he's had a good last half of the season. And going into this year, he was really, really excited about where the Twins were headed, and and a lot of unfortunate things happened along the way with injuries and other things that I think they only finished with 9 of the 25 they started with, and Joe being one of them. But you never heard any of that out of him, and he just kept coming every day, playing hard. But I think the health and the family is probably the biggest decision.
You know what, though? He could still get it done. I mean, if health aside, right? I mean, he's still a 300 hitter, give or take. He's still a 370 on base guy. He's still a Gold Glove first baseman, right? I mean, if he played next year, we'd still see productive Joe.
Oh, without a doubt. I think he could play for a few more years, and that's another hard part because I'm sure he feels that way too. You just watch him, and when he's feeling good, and he was feeling it that last month, and he was squaring up a lot of balls. And he moves to first base, and he's excellent there. And I always say he could have played any position and been really good. But catcher's the toughest one, and he was a Gold Glover there, and I think he played Gold Glove first base too. But he never tried to change his hitting either. I think his approach was to hit the ball hard somewhere all the time, and in this day and age when there's launch angles and all this stuff, he's never wavered from what he wants to do, and it's just try to hit the ball as hard as he can where it's pitched.
Do you think most fans appreciated how good Joe was?
No, I don't know. I think once he had to move to first base, the contract kind of got in the way there, as far as being appreciated by the the everyday fan. But I think when you look around baseball and how respected he is around the league, and he was still the guy they were going to intentionally walk late in the game when there was an opportunity for the Twins to win or tie a game. They didn't want to go after Joe Mauer, and there's a lot of respect around baseball for him. And I think once he's gone, it's going to be we miss Joe, and you kind of take him for granted at times, and I think even his detractors will admit that.
Behind you on the scoreboard, it says Paul Mauer, Hall of Fame. What year was that? Yeah, he went in, 04? Okay, I mean, I understand your bias, but at some point, should it say Joe Mauer, Baseball Hall of Fame, 2022, 2023?
Yeah, you hope so. Nowadays, it's tough to get in the Hall of Fame, and, he's got some numbers for it, but he's got some numbers against it, too. If he stayed a catcher, I think it's a no-brainer. Every catcher before him on the stats is in the Hall of Fame, and there's a few that are after him on the stat sheets that are in the Hall of Fame. Moving to first base, might take away some of that, but I think when you look at everything he's done throughout the years, he moving positions and how well he handled that. He just wasn't. We had to force him to take home run cuts. Even as a high school player here, we'd bring him out and, Joe, you're a big kid. You can hit home runs, and that was never a part of his game. He wanted to hit the ball hard, square, and that's just the way he was. But I think in history he'll go down as obviously one of the greatest Twins, and hopefully the writers will see his career and what happened to him, and give him that opportunity for the Hall of Fame.
On home runs, how much do you remember 09? I mean, is that about as good a memory as there was for you in terms of being able to pitch to him in the home run derby?
Yeah, that was an incredible day that Joe gave me, and that's, again, shows the kind of guy he is, bringing his high school coach to this huge event, and not knowing if he could perform in front of all those people, but we did, and it's a testament to Joe, and for me, I was a fly on the wall, just watching how all the other players respected him. The managers talked about him. So got to hear so many people speak so highly of Joe. For me, that was something I'll always take away.
Was Joe an underrated leader?
I think so. I think he was never a rah-rah guy, and he never was here either. And he was a football quarterback. He was a point guard, the catcher. So all the positions he played pointed to him to being a leader. But I think because he's not a rah-rah guy, stamp your foot type of person, but I think just when you watch him every day, you want to follow him, and you want to be like him. So hopefully throughout the years, a lot of the young guys, and I know they probably have followed the way he works and goes about his business. So I think in that respect, yeah, he's an underrated leader, but he never forced anything.
When did you know that he was special? I mean, was it ninth grade? Was it sooner than that?
When did I know Joe was special? Was he was a fantastic player in high school, obviously, and I saw him as a youth kid around here, 5th, 6th, 7th grade. But I think we were in the state tournament, and was back then we played 2 games in a day. In the morning he caught, so we took infield, he caught the game, and in the afternoon we took infield again, and he caught 5 innings. And in the top of the 5th inning, he had a 3-run homer to give us a lead. And we brought him in relief, and the first pitch he threw was 92 miles an hour. And it was on the Midway scoreboard. And I remember talking to one of the coaches. Says, well, I think the Twins made the right decision, because if you don't work out as a hitter, they can use him as a pitcher. And he was just that type of player that he could do everything.
Do you remember that too, by the way? I mean, sure you do, that time when a lot of people were like, Mark Pryor, you need to take Mark Pryor. Turned out Terry Ryan made the right call.
Yeah, no, I remember it because it was Mark Pryor, 94 miles an hour. That was the big thing with him. He threw so hard. He was ready to come up right now. And, when Joe threw that pitch after taking infield twice and playing a game and a half through 92, I said, well, maybe in a couple years he'll be throwing a little more than 94.
Joe Mauer's high school coach, baseball coach, not basketball or football, because we remember how great he was in both those sports, but his baseball coach at Cretin-Derham Hall, Jim O'Neill. Math has never been a strong suit. It would be one heck of a story if Joe Mauer made it to Cooperstown in 2022. 23, first ballot. I don't know if I see that. Maybe 2028, 29, 30. The longer time goes on, that folks who vote, heck, I'm hoping by then the voting process is changed. I just don't understand how somebody like Vince Scully doesn't vote, or Bob Costas type, or any number of broadcasters, electronic media doesn't vote. Now, I'm biased being in the electronic media, but I've just never understood that it's just print media or web writers. I've never understood that. But I think as time goes on, I think there will be a greater appreciation for all that Joe accomplished. All right, let's go notes now, all notes, and we'll call it a Scoop Podcast, episode 176. Piggybacking on all the Twins talk with Torii Hunter and Jim O'Neill. On Paul Molitor, Thad Levine and Derek Falvey scheduled to meet the media Tuesday in the 3 o'clock range. I'm assuming we'll get some clarity at that point. As of Monday, somebody close to Molly said he actually had not sat down with Thad and Derek. I don't necessarily have a sense that change is coming. I'm not dismissing it. Heck, Patrick Royce, who knows more about baseball, or heck, put it this way, he forgets more about baseball in 4 seconds than I'll ever know, has tweeted that he thinks change is coming. I don't think Patrick is saying that lightly. I just don't have any sense on my end as I sit here at 10:30 on Tuesday morning, the 2nd of October, that change is coming. But my point is we should get some clarity on that front sometime before Tuesday is over. If Molly is back, I do expect some sort of coaching staff shake-up change. I guess I would be surprised if every member of the coaching staff is back. On the medical side, you think about Buxton, Sano, Rosario, guys that came back from injury, then got re-injured. I know that Falvey and Levine want to take a hardcore analysis of what isn't working when it comes to the medical side of things. Do they bring in somebody to oversee the medical side of things, the training side of things? That is something surely to keep an eye on. Also on the Twins front, Darren Johnson, who's high up in the front office, was recently in Osaka, Japan, to scout Japanese lefty Yusei Kikuchi. And I might be saying the last name wrong, Kikuchi. Yusei Kikuchi. He is not quite Shohei Ohtani, but there's many teams that will have an interest in him. He will be posted here this winter. So the Twins have done their homework on him because I know Mike Radcliffe has also seen him, and the Twins have a scout based. All right, on Jimmy Butler, on the Wolves, that's the question I'm getting more than anything, and I get it. People are super curious, always appreciate passionate fans. I do get a kick out of the Butler side being upset that a trade hasn't been completed by now. Keep in mind that the Wolves never wanted the trade request leaked. They were always willing to satisfy the trade request when it was made, 2 weeks ago today, 2 weeks ago in Los Angeles. But the Wolves had no intention of leaking said request. That was the Jimmy Butler side that leaked the request. The Wolves remain upset about that. So I get a kick out of the Butler side, who's been leaking everything, by the way. I don't want to say everything, but 98% of information you see out there is driven by the Butler side, okay? And they are upset that a trade hasn't been completed yet. If you're the Wolves, you're going to be a bit patient. Now, my understanding is from talking to numerous league officials, league sources, front office folks, a coach, actually a couple coaching sources, that the Wolves have all the parameters of the deals that they can make. So it's on the Wolves at some point here to say yes. Now, do they wait a little bit longer just to see if some team adds a player in like Miami? Miami is not willing to move Josh Richardson, but in the end, do they offer Josh Richardson? I talked about that on a recent Scoop podcast, that some league people thought, yeah, in the end, Riley would make him available when you have a chance to acquire a star like Jimmy Butler. But so far, as of October 2nd, no sense whatsoever that Miami is making Josh Richardson available. Same goes for Bam Adebayo. Is Goran Dragic available? Yeah, the Wolves could acquire Goran Dragic. Is Hassan Whiteside available? Yeah, the Wolves could acquire Hassan Whiteside. From Houston, you can get Eric Gordon. You can get P.J. Tucker. The Rockets want Jimmy Butler. The Bucks are willing to move Brogdon, Bledsoe. The Bucks still have interest in Jimmy Butler. They're not willing to move Middleton. Miami won't move Richardson. I don't know who else you would want from Houston. Capella can't even be moved, and they're not moving Capella. So I don't know what else you would want from Houston necessarily. Sacramento is also still a key player in all this with their expiring contracts, and they have a bunch of cap space. So they are willing to absorb a contract like Gorgie Jang's, but they need at least one, if not multiple sweeteners, multiple draft picks. The Clippers are also still very, very interested in Jimmy Butler. Now, league folks still say keep an eye on Miami, that Miami wants him the most. He wants to be in Miami. Not that the Wolves care about that, but hey, if he wants to be in Miami and Miami wants him, that eventually you can find some sort of happy medium, find a way to complete a trade. Now, Jimmy's been working out at the Wolves facility with the team out west. I was told, hey, don't expect a trade while they're out west. So they play at the Clippers on Wednesday night. They fly back on Thursday. They have a preseason game at Target Center on Friday. So I don't expect anything to happen on the Butler front. Now, hey, all it takes is one new offer, one new call, but no sense that a new offer is coming in. So what I'm saying is I don't expect any Butler action here in the next 24 to 48 hours. But at some point, the Wolves need to make a decision and say, okay, this is such a sideshow, such a distraction. Let's just get what we can. We know that we're losing him anyway after the season. Heck, he has had 2 surgeries in the last, 5 or 6 months. Heck, there are people internally with the Wolves that I heard from going back weeks that were reluctant to ever give him $190 million or even $110 million. So credit to Jimmy for how hard he plays, how hard he works. But do you really want to be paying Jimmy Butler $40 million when he's 33 years old? I know that there's some people in the Wolves front office that pause on that front. Now, should Tibbs have read some tea leaves earlier this summer? Here's another bullet point that I wanted to bring up. Maybe so. But I actually take, from digging around, I take Tibbs at face value when he told us at Media Day 8 days ago that the first time he heard from Jimmy that Jimmy was requesting a trade was 2 Tuesdays ago. Now, if you listen to this podcast, go back to May 1st. I forget what episode it was, but May 1st at about the 28-minute mark, you heard that Jimmy did not fly back to Minnesota with the team after the playoff loss, the Game 5 loss to the Houston Rockets. So that was one sign. He didn't undergo some medical testing right after the season. Tibbs visited with Butler in the summer, late July, early August. So what exactly was said in that conversation? But Tibbs said at Media Day the first time that he really, really knew that Jimmy wanted out was 2 Tuesdays ago. And I'm telling you, now, we could be debating semantics, a breakdown in communication, but I'm just telling you, the idea that Jimmy requested a trade earlier in the summer, completely driven by the Jimmy side. And they are trying to shape this so Jimmy comes out looking okay, that he doesn't take a massive PR hit. I'm just telling you, though, that I do take Tibbs at face value, that the first time he really, really knew that Jimmy wanted out was 2 Tuesdays ago. So make no mistake, because I think Tibbs is taking a lot of heat, and I get it, rightfully so. Owner Glenn Taylor is taking a lot of heat. I think Jimmy Butler deserves a good amount of heat in this equation. And I'm not quite sure he's getting it mostly because of the angle of his agent and others driving information to many reporters. Let me also say on Butler before I move on that, and maybe it's a hill I just will die on, but I don't see him ever wearing a Wolves uniform again. Opening night is October 16th or 17th? I don't see him playing in San Antonio opening night, so I continue to not see Jimmy playing for the Wolves again. But when a trade happens, I guess let's just keep an eye on things again. Once the Wolves are back in the Twin Cities on Thursday afternoon, then heading into Friday, see how the weekend shakes out, because teams are still interested. There's still dialogue, but again, the Wolves have all the parameters of deals they can make. So it's on the Wolves to eventually say yes, or who knows, maybe in the end they somehow say no. I don't think they'll say no, because ownership is driven to move on from Jimmy, to at least bring back something that can help to get rid of the sideshow. So even if Tibbs is reluctant to, in the end, move Butler, ownership still wants him out. All right, some other notes. The Cole Aldrich on again, off again deal overseas appears to be back on. It looks like he is on his way to China. He's in Hawks camp right now on a non-guaranteed deal. There was some momentum about a week ago that something would happen overseas. Then it died, but now it's been revisited. It looks like there is some happy ground, because Cole is definitely interested in playing overseas. Hey, no guarantees that he was making the Hawks opening night roster, especially when you're on a non-guaranteed contract. So he can get a nice guarantee. He can experience a different lifestyle. Him and his wife are very open-minded. They are not parents yet, so they're open-minded to experiencing a new lifestyle. So don't be surprised if you see Cole Aldrich end up with a team in China. Josh Okogie continues to impress. Heck, we saw it in the first preseason game, but those first 3 days of training camp at Mayo Clinic Square, I was told that Okogie played very, very well. So we'll wait and see if Tibbs will play a rookie, but Josh Okogie impressing a lot of folks so far. What other notes do I have written down? Marcus Carr, the Pittsburgh transfer, the point guard for the Gophers men's basketball team. The NCAA is handing out these waivers left and right. Another kid got one on Monday to be eligible right away after transferring. I'm told the Gophers are optimistic. It's guarded optimism, but they are optimistic that Marcus Carr will be eligible this year. Imagine how big of a deal that would be, because point guard is a question mark. Isaiah Washington, a question mark. Nobody behind Isaiah. Amir Coffey is going to play on the ball, and Dupree McBrayer can play on the ball. But imagine if Marcus Carr, who averaged double figures in the ACC last year as a true freshman, imagine if he is eligible right away. That would be a big-time win for the Gophers. On UW Milwaukee transfer Brock Stahl, I'm told he's still working on his conditioning. He had to finish up some academic work. He arrived on campus right at the beginning of the semester, so he's still getting into game shape. The beautiful thing is the Gophers are still over a month away from playing a game that matters, so Stahl has plenty of time to get into shape. On the Gophers football team, Antoine Winfield Jr., I don't think this was ever reported, ligament damage in his foot. That's why he underwent surgery. That's why he is out for the season. On Keandre Thomas, I know that he missed the Maryland game trying to get some academic stuff squared away. Hopefully he's back this week. Who will say the swine is mine? It's the Gophers and Iowa Hawkeyes at TCF Bank Stadium, 2:30 on Saturday afternoon. On Gophers women's basketball, before I get to the Vikings, I was over at Lindsay Whalen's first official practice on Monday. Hey, talking to Destiny Pitts, the Big Ten Freshman of the Year last year after, and Kenesha Bell, who is the Gophers' best player. They both talked about how Lindsay and her coaching staff certainly emphasized defense way more than Marlene Stallings did. Also, Pitts said that, them going to a man-to-man defense certainly should help. The Gophers played pretty much all zone under Marlene Stallings, and just the overall emphasis, I'm telling you, the energy, the emphasis placed on defense was eye-opening because we hadn't seen it under Marlene. Now, to Marlene's credit, she won the first NCAA tournament game in 9 years here. I mean, it had been 9 years since the Gophers women's basketball team won an NCAA tournament game. So she did something right. She won a game last year. She about doubled her salary to get the job at Texas Tech. So Marlene Stallings knows what she's doing, but she just never emphasized defense. Hey, it was a fun style of basketball to watch because it was always run and gun, score a lot of points, try to outscore the opposition. So it was a fun brand of basketball to watch. But really, truthfully, Marlene never really emphasized defense during her time here. So certainly Lindsay Whalen is emphasizing defense. Also, Destiny Pitts talked about how they watched a lot of the Lynx because, no surprise, a lot of the things that Cheryl Reeve ran with the Lynx, Lindsay will run with the Gophers. And on Kenesha Bell, I've said this for a while, that I think the best job that Lindsay Whalen has done so far from a recruiting standpoint was convincing Kenesha to not transfer. She could have transferred as a graduate transfer, but once the Lindsay Whalen hire was announced, Kenesha has WNBA aspirations. She was all about playing for Lindsay. But I do think if they had brought in a different coach, that there was a distinct possibility that Kenesha Bell would have left the Gophers as a graduate transfer. All right, and one other Gopher note. Ben Gordon, assistant coach. Bob Mott's going to go down the list pretty good, although Ben is a good hockey guy. I've heard a lot of good things about Ben Gordon, the former Gophers hockey player. Motzko pretty much had to hire a U of M man for that second assistant job, so he gets Ben Gordon, but he did swing and miss on a number of guys, including Chris McAlpine, so he had to go down that list pretty good, but all in all, pretty good hire to bring in Ben Gordon. On the Vikings, I heard that George Iloka's camp wasn't going to say anything until the Rams game played out. Well, Iloka got, one defensive snap in the loss to the Rams. Iloka came here for the minimum, thinking that he would absolutely play. He hasn't played through 4 games. He's played on special teams, but hasn't played on defense. So that's a storyline to watch this week. Do they say something? Do they say, hey, why isn't George playing, especially the way the defense is playing? And Iloka was a really good player for the Cincinnati Bengals. You have to wonder, what is going on there? Why isn't he playing? And I know that his side is wondering the same thing, and there was maybe even going to be a phone call this week if he hadn't played in the Rams game. And as we saw, he did not play in the Rams game. The Vikings worked out defensive lineman Robert Ayers and Lamar Houston on Monday. Doesn't sound like any traction on signing either one of those guys. I do find it interesting, though, that no interest so far in bringing back Brian Robinson. So they work out these defensive linemen on Monday. I'm told they have not reached out to Brian Robinson today. Maybe that can always change, but as of now, no Vikings interest in Brian Robinson. On the local basketball scene, there's all sorts of stuff to keep an eye on, but certainly Zeke Nnaji of Hopkins, top 40 player in the country in the class of 2019, 6'10" forward. His dad texted me the other day. I'm trying to multitask as I scroll down to the text. I will read you what went into his decision-making to eliminate the Gophers. Heck, eliminate Wisconsin. He eliminated over 15 schools. He now has a Final 5. They are Kansas, Arizona, UCLA, Baylor, and Purdue. He will officially visit Kansas October 5th, Arizona October 12th, UCLA October 19th, Baylor October 26th, and Purdue November 2nd. Then he will commit right before the Hopkins basketball season starts. So he'll commit in late November. I believe their first game is like December 1st or maybe late November. He'll commit sometime around November 24th. For his Final 5, here is what went into it for them. And this is a family decision. This isn't just Zeke. Certainly his dad and his family are heavily involved. Here is what his dad told me. The key for us was style of play, strength coach, student body, and relationship with the coach. Certainly it was not easy to turn down the likes of the Gophers and Badgers. I know that Zeke's dad reached out to Rob Jeter of the Gophers, texted with Richard Pitino. It was not easy telling the Gophers no, but those are the schools he is looking at. I'll just say this. I think it'll be hard for Purdue and Baylor to beat out the Blue Bloods. I consider UCLA a Blue Blood. I guess Arizona's up in the air, but I think Arizona is a Blue Blood, then Kansas. I certainly would keep an eye on Arizona first, then Kansas. Keep an eye on those two schools for Zeke Nnaji of Hopkins. All right, I think that'll do it. I'll try to get in here maybe later this week, especially if some things develop on the Jimmy Butler front, say Thursday into Friday. No guarantees just because my TV schedule is all over the place. But I have some other notes that I did not get to. But I think 60 minutes is, well, heck, you could argue 60 minutes is too long for any podcast. But I think that's a good end point for me right here on Scoop Podcast episode 176. Support MyBookie, mybookie.com. Check it out. And if you want to learn more about MyBookie, rewind to about the 27-28 minute mark. I did a little spot about MyBookie. You can listen back to that. They have all sorts of offers. You can use the promo code SCOOP to get some dollars your way. They will match your deposit dollar for dollar. So they have all sorts of great deals going on. You play, you win. It is MyBookie, mybookie.com. All right, we are done here on Scoop Podcast episode 176. Always appreciate you listening.
Napa know-how.
It takes a lot to get excited about a bag, but most bags can't save you 20% on parts and accessories. That's 20% off brake pads, 20% off oil filters, 20% off virtually anything you can fit inside the 99-cent Napa reusable bag. So tell your buddies there's a bag they just have to check out. Quality parts, helpful people. That's Napa know-how.
Napa know-how.
At participating Napa Auto Parts stores while supplies last. Minimum 3 items. Exclusions apply. Offer ends 10/31/18.
I'm Rita Foley with an AP News Minute. The White House has given the FBI clearance to interview anyone it wants to by Friday in the Brett Kavanaugh investigation. But President Trump points to Democrats saying, we don't want to go on a witch hunt, do we?
He's a good man. Great student, great intellect. Never had a problem. All of a sudden, let's go back to high school. They maybe should go before high school.
The president last night at a rally for Republican candidates in Tennessee. An American is among 3 scientists who have just won the Nobel Prize for their work in laser physics. The American is Arthur Ashkin.
Arthur Ashkin was born in 1922 in New York City. He made his remarkable invention at the Bell Laboratories in New Jersey, in the United States.
The Royal Swedish Academy. Ashkin shares the prize with a Canadian and a Frenchman. Tropical storm Rosa expected to drench the Southwest from Arizona to Utah. I'm Rita Foley.